This is the story of a brother and sister named Hansel and Gretel. Their father was a poor woodcutter and their mother stayed at home looking after them. The family was so poor, in fact, that they could not afford much food. The mother eventually had a terrible idea, which was to leave Hansel and Gretel out in the forest alone. Father at first did not like this plan, but Mother eventually changed his mind. While Mother was convincing Father, Hansel and Gretel were in their bedroom listening. Gretel is scared, and Hansel assures her that everything will be okay, and sneaks out at night to grab white pebbles, as many as he can. Hansel returns to his room and hides the pebbles for the next day. In the morning, when the family treks out into the forest, Hansel is leaving behind a trail of white pebbles all the way home. Eventually, when they are abandoned by their parents, Hansel and Gretel follow the trail all the way back home. Mother, seeing the trail, grew furious and locked Hansel and Gretel in the room, not even allowing them to go outside to collect pebbles. The next morning, the family goes out into the forest again. Hansel is only able to grab a piece of bread this time. Leaving behind a trail of breadcrumbs all the way home, Hansel and Gretel are abandoned by their parents in the forest and discover that their trail of breadcrumbs has been eaten by birds. Now lost, Hansel and Gretel had been wandering in the forest for many days, eventually following a white bird that they had come across into a forest clearing. In the clearing, there was a gingerbread-made cottage with gumdrops and windows made out of clear sugar. So hungry from the days of not eating, Hansel and Gretel began eating the rooftop of the cottage. Out from the front door, an old hag comes and yells at them, saying to not eat her house and that she has food and warm beds for them. Little did the children know that the old hag actually turned out to be a witch that lures children into her house in order to eat them, to cook and eat them. Once luring Hansel and Gretel into the house, Hansel is thrown into a cage and Gretel is forced to become a slave. The witch plans to eat Hansel by fattening him up before eating him, feeding him many candy, and keeping him there for weeks. In order to check how fat Hansel is getting, the witch checks his finger. Hansel, instead of showing her his finger, shows her a bone, which is much skinnier. The witch, with her failing eyesight, cannot see the difference and believes Hansel is remaining skinny. Annoyed because Hansel is not growing fatter, she decides to eat him anyways. Preparing the oven for Hansel, the witch decides that she is hungry enough to eat Hansel and Gretel at the same time. Gretel being her slave, the witch tells Gretel in order to help her, she needs to open the oven to prepare for Hansel. Gretel, knowing better, she decides to act dumb and pretends like she doesn't know what she's talking about. The witch grows frustrated and decides to show Gretel what she means. The witch, now inside the oven, Gretel shuts the door and bolts the door shut, turning on the oven and burning the witch alive. Once the witch is dead, Gretel runs to Hansel's cage and sets him free. On the way out, they stumble across a vase containing many precious gold and stones. Stuffing their pockets full of precious gold and stones, they run out of the cottage and try to find their way home. Somehow, finding their way home, they find their father alone at home, revealing that their mother had died of an unknown cause. Now, with the wealth of the witch, they live happily ever after.